Hey there, it's Marissa. I want to invite you to listen in to the conversation I had with the son of the founder of Hamas. His name is Mosab Hassan Yousef. We did a Stories of Us with him, which you may have seen, but the entire footage of the interview is so fascinating. It's a little over an hour, and I got to ask him so many different questions that I think some of you may want to hear. And so I invite you to listen into this kind of uncut version of an interview that I conducted, and I'd love for you to listen, send in your thoughts. You probably have some comments. I'd love to read them, and enjoy the viewing. It's fascinating.
Stories of Us, take one. Mark.
Can you describe to me the early years of your dad building this organization, how he started Hamas?
At the beginning of Hamas was a very secretive movement, so my father did not talk about that or his involvement with Hamas. Even though he was one of the founders of Hamas, he never admitted that to me or to anyone. You wouldn't find any evidence of his actual role in the movement. This is their strategy. They're very secretive. You wouldn't know them, and if you see them in masks, and most likely, most of their operation was at night time. So you'd never meet them, but you would see their action practically. So you can say the first year or 2 years of the Palestinian Intifada, secret members behind masks were responsible for the activity, and most people didn't know about their identity. In order for Hamas members to become members, they had to go through the first stage, which was indoctrination. They call it dawah. So the members would go through the process for a couple of years. They would choose the members who qualify for the military wing, who qualifies for the political wing, who qualifies for security wing, and who finally could qualify for leadership or for teaching other members and recruiting other members to the movement. At the beginning, Hamas depended on its own members. Believe or not, their own members, leaders paid from their own pockets to advance the movement. This is how much they believed in the cause. Later on, when Hamas became more popular and people heard about it in the Muslim world, Hamas members abroad collected donations from mosques in the Arab world and in the Western world, especially in the United States. Like, for example, the Holy Land Foundation operated for a long time, and they collected tens of millions of dollars and they sent it to Hamas. And that was here in the United States. Of course, Hamas was very cautious of how they channeled their money. They used just local offices and their charity committees. That was their cover. And that was under Waqf ministry. Waqf means the Islamic Trust Ministry. So Hamas greatly dominated this ministry, and they used the institutions of this ministry to deliver the money from abroad and to actually distribute the donations coming to Hamas through the mosques. This was their strategy, and it was very hard to trace their operation. This is why it took a long time before governments were able to shut down some of Hamas financial institutions.
At what point did you get into enough trouble where you were sent to Israeli prison? What happened?
In a society where my father is a revolutionary leader, a religious leader, I wanted to follow that lead. So I got involved in the Islamic student movement, a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, a branch of Hamas. Even before I became 18, I purchased guns with actually intention to form a military cell. And of course, before we used the guns, I was arrested. So it was one of the most painful experiences of my life. And I was beaten up in the worst possible way.
How is it that after what they did to you, you ended up working with them?
So this ignited actually my sense of revenge. So my hatred increased to a degree where I decided I wanted to just kill all of them, everybody who laid hand on me. And this is why I agreed to work with the Israeli intelligence, because I was motivated by revenge. And I thought I would just destroy them from within. My first intention was to be a double agent against Israel, not to work for Israel. When I was transferred to the main prison where other Hamas members, I told Hamas my story. I told them I need support. Instead of helping me, actually, they started interrogating me as a suspect. And this is the real crack between me and Hamas. Why did they accuse me of something that I didn't do? My intention was actually to fight for the cause, but they did not believe. And for about 16 months in Israeli prison, I struggled with this thing. When I was released from prison, I wanted to get out. I cannot work for Hamas anymore. But I was surprised when Hamas security wing came knocking on my door to follow up on the case inside prison. So I thought to myself, there is no escape from these people. How many people actually now believe Hamas narrative? And I didn't know how to protect myself. So as Hamas followed up with me outside the prison, Israel came to follow up for my promise. I told them the story, and I was afraid that they were actually going to punish me for having the original intention of being a double agent. And the answer was, son, you don't have to worry about this. Many people start like this with us. You know, they hate us. It's part of your culture. You don't know who we are. But now you need to understand that your life is in danger. As a youngster, I came from a society of savages, a hate cult, a death cult, into the most advanced intelligence service in the world. It was a mind-blowing experience of just being part of that community, the intelligence community.
Let's get into the part of the story where, how did you go from being an Israeli spy to moving to the United States?
Yeah, at some point I got fed up with the whole Middle East situation. I needed to move on with my education, and it became very dangerous. The operation was very dangerous, and Hamas was already in suspicion. And our operation, I was involved in so much events. So how, like, even though we had very good cover, very good protection, but we were pushing it to the limit every time. So I decided to just leave the territory, and the United States was far enough and was safe enough. Like, where else would I go? Europe is very close, huge Muslim population. I could not go to any Arab country. And the best, most secure place was the United States. So this is why I migrated to the US.
Did the Israelis help you migrate to the United States? Did you get a green card? How do you actually get here?
I came actually on a tourist visa. At that time, I was working for the US government in Ramallah. A program called Water Resources belonging to the USAID. So I was employed by one of the subdivisions belonging to the Palestinian water department. And so I had some USAID identification. So that helped me obtain a visa to the United States. And I used that visa to come as a tourist. But once I arrived here, I asked for political asylum.
Do you remember the moment that you started figuring out that you love America? Like, at what point did you start building an affinity to American values?
You know, first I had friends in the United States, and I just wanted to be close to my friends, people I met in the Middle East. Did I love the United States of America? I wanted to be in the United States of America. I like the movies. I like many things about the culture. Many of the Americans I met throughout my career with the USAID and before were very friendly people. And that had some influence on me. But later on, when the United States took me in a moment where my family disowned me, and it was very, very important time of my life, and it had a huge impact on my life. And I became American, and with being American comes responsibility as well.
How did you become an American? You applied for citizenship? Well, can you just describe a little bit of the process of what you had to go through? I mean, you went from being very attached to your Palestinian identity growing up. Now you're attached to your American identity. Like, how did that evolve?
Right. Well, I'm not attached to any identity, but I take responsibility for my duty as a citizen in the United States. It was not an easy process. First of all, the difficulties were security concerns of the FBI and Homeland Security Immigration Office for my father's status. The Department of Homeland Security rejected my asylum application at the beginning, and it was 3 years of hassle in the immigration court. And eventually, the U.S. Congress helped me, or let's say they influenced the Department of Homeland Security with additional evidence from my involvement with the Israeli intelligence. Many people got involved at that time. It was a big fight at court because I couldn't prove my account with the Israeli intelligence, and everything was secret. So one of my handlers actually came from Israel and witnessed my involvement and all my work against terrorism. And that allowed me to become a resident of the United States and eventually became a citizen.
Your case for asylum was because, I guess, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, wanted to kill you?
Well, if they knew about my involvement with the Israeli intelligence, at that time they didn't know. So I did not want to wait until the last moment until I'm exposed. And also I could not reveal my entire account as a secret agent. So it was very difficult to make my case to public and very difficult to make my case especially to the Department of Homeland Security. But eventually the truth prevailed.
How long have you been a U.S. citizen, and what does citizenship mean to you?
I have been American citizen since 2018. For me, it's not about nationalism, but I appreciate the American Constitution, and I appreciate the American people. I appreciate the freedom and the way of the American life. Even though now we are losing ground with so many strange ideas, who knows who's behind them. But I still appreciate America as a superpower, but in the meantime, pro-individual and pro-individualism, which is the opposite of the culture where I grew up, that empowers the tribe against the individual. In the United States, I was able to demonstrate my freedom fearlessly, and I still do, protected by the American Constitution and my freedom of speech. So with that said, this is what makes me appreciate this model. And also my appreciation to capitalism in general, that I think, those who work harder and earn more, they have earned it. And those who don't put the right effort, they're not entitled for any reward. So the capital model, I think, is more natural, and it goes very well with the way of existence, the way of life. If I had to compare it to communism, socialism, Islamism, many other dependent constitutions. Those are the most important things.
At a certain point, your story became public. You were living in America when you wrote your book?
Yes.
Can you describe to me how you decided to come out with your book? And there was a very pivotal moment in your life before you released your book, I believe, when you called your father.
Yes. Well, I thought something could happen to me. And I did not want my experience in the Middle East to go in void. So I felt the need to document it. And this is why we start writing the book. But after a few chapters into the book, we realized that this needs professional writing, and we needed a publisher. At that time, I had no clue, you could profit from a book. For me, it was more of my responsibility that I wanted to document my life. So in case an accident happens. So this is how the idea of the book came out, but there were lots of details that would put death sentence on me. This is why I was not sure if I was ready to publish it, and why would I publish it at that time. And thankfully, I had the courage eventually that, yes, I want this to go out to public the way it is. But I did not want my father to hear from the media or from the TV. I called him. It was a short window while he was in Israeli prison. And I told him the truth. It was the hardest conversation I ever had, I have to say. Because I had to reveal, first of all, that I had to betray him in order to protect him from himself. And I did not want him to feel guilty about it. And I did not want him also to feel ashamed, but there was no way around it. My relationship with the Israeli intelligence in that culture is very, very shameful. The most shameful act you can do. And that was my struggle against actually the enemy of shame. To be ashamed of saving human lives. Why should I feel guilty about trying to stop suicide bombing attacks? Why should I feel guilty to work with a legitimate democracy against a group of savages? By the name of what? On what authority I would be condemned to death? I wanted to just tell my father that my motive was pure, and I just wanted to save his life, and I wanted to save human lives, and I wanted, most importantly, to save my own life from that madness. So when I told him the story, he went silent. He didn't say anything. And after a while, I broke the silence. I told him, listen, Dad, if you want to disown me, you can go ahead. I know this is very hard on you, and I know that you have to protect my brothers. Because in that culture, if I wasn't there and my father did not disown me, other tribes have the right to kill any of my siblings. So my father had no choice but to disown me. This is how brutal that culture. There is no mercy in this case. So he told me, this is not a choice. This is not an option. He said, you will always be my son, and I will always love you. And this was his final words. 2 days later, I heard from the media that he disowned me, and this was the last conversation I had with him.
It's pretty amazing that his response to you in private was that he loves you. Did you reject the feeling of shame that you were battling with? Did you overcome that?
It's an imaginary thing. It's based on what others see. And everybody sees it differently. They could see you in the morning as a hero. Then the same group of people can see you as a traitor in the evening. If we really to be carried away by other people, praise and blame, we can never find our own truth or who we are. It was very hard at the beginning, not because my own shame, but it's more of the guilt that came with it to get my entire family stained by shame. This was the only part that was out of my control, because I was here in the United States and I was protected by a new country, by a new system. that validates actually what I did from a moral point of view. For the rest of my family, they were still there. And they had to deal with this for the rest of their lives as Muslims, as Palestinians, as children of that culture.
Also, the way you describe your dad, it makes it hard to hate him because he loved you still.
Yes. Unfortunately, many people think, that I had a problem with my dad, but the truth is that we were best friends. My dad was a religious leader. Before the establishment of Hamas, he was imam at the mosque. So I'd go with him to the mosque, different mosques. He would preach. He would speak sometimes to hundreds, sometimes to thousands of people. He was very charismatic, which made him into a leader in a lawless society where there was no establishment, no government. A religious leader really played a significant role in that society. And my father was a leader of that community, where when people had dispute, when they had all type of problems, they came to him. So that's my memories of my father at the early age. And the honest truth, he was very good dad. He loved me within the best of his ability. And this is why it really hurts, how things developed in my life, where I stand now completely the opposite of where he is.
After you released your book, my first reaction was, wow, you probably put yourself in a very dangerous situation. Did you receive death threats? Did you receive communications that your life is in danger?
Look, I understood the consequences of such a decision when I decided to do whatever I did. I chose to live free. All of us were going to die eventually. It's the question, how do we die? And I prefer to die free. I didn't do anything wrong. All I was trying to do to save human lives, all I was trying to do is to see a higher truth than the conditioning of my society. And today I'm shunned by my own family, and I am condemned to death by my society.
What is your rebuttal to the comment or the accusation that you've committed treason against your people and your family?
Don't individuals have the right to actually make a choice between the tribal interest and the higher interest of humanity? When the tribe was insisting continuously on harming other people because they were different in religion or race, whatever it is, and I make different choices. If this is treason, then be it. But I think that this is reason. It's not treason.
For those who are living here in America and are thinking to themselves, it's all very sad, cycle of violence in the Middle East, but frankly, it's on the other side of the planet. You're an American now. You're still stepping into the arena. You feel like you have to speak about it. Why? You're here in America. Why should us Americans, care so much about this issue on the other side of the planet?
Well, first of all, we are superpower, and America as a superpower has a responsibility towards global security. We cannot just abandon the rest of the world. We depend on the rest of the world. We depend on the Middle East, not only for energy, but we depend on the security and the stability of the region. Because if that goes out of control, our commerce, our way of life, everything that we do will be jeopardized. So this is number one. Number two, we don't want Hamas ideology and the Muslim Brotherhood ideology to spread. We have to counter it. That's part of our moral responsibility towards the world, especially when we have a generation that is swayed by foreign entities taking advantage of the situation. So then we have obligation towards our allies. Israel is a great ally, and Israel contributes to the American security more than any other country on planet Earth. And not only that, There is a huge Jewish community who contribute to the American treasury. So the volume of their contribution in taxpayer money and in literature, in innovation, in every field of life is magnificent. And how can any American government abandon more than 6 million Jews who are a fundamental part of this structure? The Jewish people in the United States have roots to this land. They have family there. Their children are there. Their relatives are there. Their history is there. 4,000-year plus history connect the Jewish community of the United States to Israel. It's a bond that is stronger than a political ally.
Well, I want to untangle this because I would imagine that some people listening would say, okay, this is true that there are a lot of Jews that live in America. I'm assuming you're talking about the anti-Semitism that we're seeing in the U.S. right now when you're talking about how are we ignoring this, the Jewish plight right now. But people would say, well, Israel and anti-Semitism is not the same thing. Sending money to Israel and fighting the war in Israel is not the same thing as condemning anti-Semitism in America. And then when you're saying, well, yeah, that is true that there are a lot of Jews that are part of the American economy or the economy in the West, sure, but there are also a lot of Muslims that live in the United States, possibly some of them even Palestinians, backgrounds like yours, who have moved here. And so what about their voice, right? And so like America is e pluribus unum, from many one. We come from all these different places. And so, when you're saying, well, America should stand up for the Jewish cause. Well, what about the Muslims that live in America? Shouldn't Americans stand for the Muslim cause?
Well, first of all, the United States stands for its own constitution, and there are no contradictions when it comes to the Israeli democracy. There are lots of things in common, unlike the rest of the Arab world, that they're not reliable. Some of them are allies, but they're not as reliable as Israel. When 9/11 happened, Israel was there training the American troops, the American intelligence, including the FBI, including the Homeland Security. It was a pilgrimage to Tel Aviv and to Jerusalem to study of how to counter terrorism and how to win the war, global war against terrorism. They didn't go to Saudi Arabia or to any other country. And what is the Muslim contribution to the American economy and to the American treasury in comparison to actually the Jewish contribution? Then when we say aid to Israel, what is it? A few $1 billion given in military aid? So if the United States give Egypt, which is an ally, $1.5 billion annually in military aid, and give, let's say, the state of Israel double that because they are more reliable ally, they do the same, a lot more towards NATO. They're not giving Israel charity, to just prosper. Israel is not dependent on the United States and its economy. Israel is totally developed country, advanced, and contributes to the American defense system, to the American technology in the high tech in every field. So why the United States of America would abandon their best ally, strongest country, in the midst of a genocide where they're facing a modern day Holocaust? Is this the time when the allies abandon their friends? Just because we have some angry pro-Palestine or from Palestinian background who are exploiting the American freedoms to advance savage agendas? This is not acceptable. We support Israel. We stand with Israel. This is the correct thing to do.
When you were under all the media pressure that you were describing to me, past the release of your book, plus the threats, you took steps out of the light. You stopped doing media and you kind of disappeared for a little bit. You did your own thing and lived, I guess, a simple, quiet life, but you decided to come back into the arena after October 7th. What happened on October 7th that made you want to come back to the arena, come back to the United States and speak out?
The protests and the anti-Semitism on American campuses, European capitals, and generally in the West shook me to the core, because Israel was still mourning ethnic cleansing committed by Hamas. And it was literally a modern-day Holocaust. And my friendship with Israel is a lot longer and deeper than my friendship with actually the society where I was brought up. My relationship with Israel is 27 years old, and that's like most of my life. And I developed so many friendships throughout the Jewish communities worldwide. Then the United States of America is my country now. It's my responsibility towards my people. The United States of America took me in when my father disowned me, when my own family rejected me, when my people said, kill him. This is when the United States gave me a second chance and took me in. So in a moment of despair, in a moment of chaos, it was not the right thing to stay in silence and disappear. This is why I speak as loud as I can.
Do you see these forces of chaos and darkness coming towards the United States? Are you here to warn us in America?
Well, we are involved much deeper than we are thinking. The Muslim Brotherhood is here in the United States. Hamas strategy is a very clever strategy, which they don't operate abroad. They kept concentrating on Israel within the Palestinian territories. They avoided targeting Israeli targets abroad. Doesn't mean that they are not anti-America, doesn't mean that they are not anti-Western civilization. The Palestinian national agendas to Hamas is only a device that gets them one step closer towards their Islamic state on the rubble of the state of Israel, but this is not their final goal. Hamas' goal is beyond the river and the sea, is beyond any political border. Hamas' aspiration is global, is a global state. And this is the Muslim Brotherhood strategy. The Muslim Brotherhood is the ideology of Hassan al-Banna and Sayyid Qutb, two leaders from the past century. And those leaders hated the United States, especially Sayyid Qutb. This is the philosopher of all Islamists, inspired all Islamic movements around the world. Hamas is only a branch, a small branch of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Is the Muslim Brotherhood with Hamas and all its other tentacles, are they spreading anti-Americanism here in America?
The Muslim Brotherhood is 100 million active members around the world, and they are in the United States. The FBI, Homeland Security, CIA, they know of their existence. And the Congress tried multiple times to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood, and they failed. But they are here, and they have many branches. They have many names. But we know it's the same ideology as the Muslim Brotherhood. This is Hamas. And those are the shadowy people, actually, the masters behind so many protests by the name of Palestine. This type of people thrive through chaos. This is what they want. When they see protests, angry cause, when they see bloodshed, fanning the flame of the conflict to globalize the intifada and bring intifada to the American streets, where the mob would threaten and intimidate peaceful people, to insult Jewish people, to make people unsafe in their own homes. This is the game of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is how they like it. They thrive in chaos. Then we have hate messages by the name of religion in the mosque. And I say, shut down those mosques. Any mosque that does not separate religion and state must be closed. So I think we really need to counter. We need to counter this Muslim Brotherhood. It's a disease. For example, when the Muslim Brotherhood created Hamas as a branch, as a military wing, so they separate their activity, their general activity, which is basically aiming for a global state, than Hamas' local agenda that is concerned of the Palestinian territories. So this is like just a different department. I would consider any branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, whether they claim that it's education or preaching or peaceful or charity or just religious, all of them are interdependent. And all these functions support each other. So there is no difference between the hawks and the doves within the Muslim Brotherhood. They all should be treated as one organization, one entity that has many functions, but eventually it will lead to violence.
America has its adversaries, the Iranians, the Russians. Is it possible that America's adversaries are using the Muslim Brotherhood to take America down?
Other superpowers like Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, they made it very clear that they did not want the American superiority. They did not want the American monopoly over power. And their objective is to change world order. When the United States of America proposed condemnation to Hamas in the Security Council, Russia and China vetoed the decision. It's very clear that they use the wild cards or small entities like Hezbollah, like Hamas, to destabilize regions in order to destabilize the American economy. And now we see that they actually brought the division right to the American soil. Because today, with the virtual reality and the social media, we don't know where the accounts are originating from. It could be somebody from North Korea taking advantage of the situation and using the angry cause to fan the flame and ruin the lives of so many students on campuses, their families, and their life achievements. How could any American not consider this as an immediate threat to the American society? The game Hamas is playing, behind them, the Muslim Brotherhood, behind them, communists, socialists, Islamists, they all want to see the destruction of the United States of America. And for the first time in the history, we see Islamists and communists marching together in the same street, having a common goal. And their goal is the destruction and the fall of the American civilization.
How aren't Americans seeing what you are saying? Why are young Americans on campuses, celebrities in Hollywood, why are they feeling an affinity to the Palestinian/Hamas cause? And they're not realizing that they're even putting their own lives at risk from the way you're describing this?
Well, because they are not affected directly in the time being. But they don't know that eventually it is going to burn them. Being a hypocrite right now to just make a political stand in a trendy matter, thinking that this is a cool thing, abandoning fundamental principles that made this country a superpower. It's this very fundamental principles that we don't negotiate with savages and we don't submit to the will of terrorists no matter what. Ridiculing all the suffering and all the effort of our intelligence services and our army and all the soldiers who sacrificed their lives to bring security. And now, in the moment of crisis, they forget about the principle and they get carried away with the terrorist propaganda advocating on behalf of the devil. the very devil that wishes the death and the destruction of America and every American. Hamas is not America's friend. Today, yes, they are fighting directly against Israel, but in every speech, Hamas consider the United States of America the greatest enemy. And it's not only Hamas, behind them the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas grew faster than any other Palestinian faction for a main reason. That Hamas was not only a national organization. They represent themselves as a religious organization that actually fight on behalf of the people against what's so-called occupation. And this is a very powerful combination. Other organizations were just solely nationalists. But Hamas was able to manipulate very powerful forces into the society. When you recruit people by the name of the nation and by the name of God, you can spread your message and grow like wildfire. And if Israel fails to destroy Hamas in Gaza, it will be the birth of an empire of savages. And we cannot allow this to happen. Because if Hamas succeed in bringing Israel to its knees, many other Islamists can do the same. And there would be so many of them. Not necessarily Hamas, but they could be 1,000 different names.
There's something we have in common. People ask us, aren't we afraid? People are threatening us for speaking the truth. Aren't you afraid to live in fear? For me, my answer is I actually feel that I'm freer than most. I don't have a diamond cage. I get to speak freely, and I don't care about the money or the insults, because that's real freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of being who you really are. Freedom of speaking truth is freer than anything. That's freer than the physical threats that we might be experiencing. And I'm curious, what is your answer to this question of, aren't you afraid of the threats? Aren't you afraid of, these people are capable of such violence? How do you deal with that fear? Or do you feel free? Or do you feel freer than most?
What is freedom? It's mostly freedom from fear. The freedom not to be afraid, not to submit to the intimidation by savages. And especially, when we are fighting for our very existence. There are so many people out there who don't want me to exist. Same thing with Israel. They don't want Israel to exist, but they don't have a reason why. It's just blind hatred. Someone to blame. They want the traitor. They want the Zionist. They need someone to blame. They don't want to take responsibility. Why should I be afraid? We're not hiding anything, and we're not doing anything wrong. So this is the source of our strength. We're not fighting for ideology, and we're not fighting for territory. We're just fighting simply for our individuality. That if I am different, and I have different point of views that are going in harmony with existence, with evolution, then you don't have the authority to silence me. Whether intimidation or bullets or whatever it is. And this is how I live. This is America. This is what it really means to be American.
Mosab, do you feel like you had to sacrifice personally a lot for truth, marriage, children?
Look, I don't consider it as a sacrifice because I chose a different path of life. Many things have been revealed to me because of the choices that I made. And I'm really content and happy with the choices that I made in my life. I would have not seen the things that I see today, even though it's more of the dark side the cruel side of humanity. I'm glad that I saw the things that I saw, and I learned the lessons that life have taught me.
If you could give advice to a young Palestinian living in Gaza or in the West Bank right now, what would you say to them?
I would like for them to just realize that Hamas' existence is just a temporary existence, and it's coming to an end soon. So the identification with Hamas, with PLO, with Palestine, all of this nonsense, false identities. What I would like to see, a new generation of true rebels, but not against the United States and against democracy. Rather, rebellion against slavery, against indoctrination, against conditioning, against all the entities and forces that trying to steal their individuality. And I would like to see a new generation that fight for their freedom fearlessly. Here I am. I've been fighting for so long, and so many wanted me dead, and so many still want me dead. But I'm standing strong and stronger than ever. No one has authority over our lives, and we should not be afraid. And if I have to choose, I personally, if I have to choose between a false political identity, something that is not me, and my own individuality, I choose my individuality, even if this means death.
Should the young Palestinian fight for their freedom against Israel, or should the young Palestinian fight against Hamas?
First of all, I will not call them Palestinians. Okay, Yasser Arafat wanted them to be Palestinians. Hamas wanted them to be Palestinians. Many entities wanted them to be Palestinians, but they are not. They are just children of that land. They are, some of them Arabians, some of them Turks, some of them Gypsies. Wherever they come from, it doesn't matter. They should learn from Israel. Israel is their best friend in the region. Israel is the model for the rest of the region, not only those who were born in the West Bank and Gaza, but also those who were born in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar. The rest of the Arab world should learn from the Israeli approach towards life. It's a very creative approach, and I like it. And we can learn a lot how the Jewish people overcame the atrocities of the Holocaust and were able to create a very successful, very powerful country. We need more of this model. Fighting against it would be going against evolution, against civilization, moving backward. Instead, we need to move forward. We need actually to cooperate with Israel, consider Israel as a friend. And this is hopefully after this war is over, we'll be able to talk about peace and initiate all type of cooperation between the Arab world and Israel, because Israel is not their enemy. Hamas is going to be history as a name. We're going to bring it back to seed level. And I think Islamists, including the Muslim Brotherhood, will learn that violence is a dead end. This is the final message out of this war, that Islamists cannot get away with a crime like a genocide. They cannot just ethnically cleanse 20 Jewish communities and by the name of nationalism, by the name of human rights and international sympathy with the cause and the global chaos, that they get away with their crime. That's not possible. Today, Hamas and other Islamists understand that the use of human shields is a losing card. They used it in the past, in the previous Gaza wars. It worked for them. This time, it backfired. And this is why it's a long war. And we need from the American public to understand that we have to carry on all the way until the end. The fact that Hamas used their own children as human shields should not give Hamas a ticket to more power and to more territory and to more money. This is what they are looking for. And this time, we have to prove them wrong. Hence, we have to finish the job. It's a very difficult job. The children are dying because of Hamas. We need to understand that this is how it originated. Hamas committed a genocide on October 7. Then they committed a bigger war crime when they took their own children as human shields. Let's not forget that. Under schools, hospitals, they did not leave any sacred place or refuge for any civilian to escape, where they made every building in Gaza into a target. So as the IDF moved into Gaza, it's almost impossible to avoid civilian casualties. Then Hamas exaggerate the statistics of civilian casualties, and this is their propaganda, challenging the American morality, challenging the Western value system to condemn Israel and come across as freedom fighters. And up to this point, we bought into their propaganda. So we have to be very careful and not forget who's our ally. When 9/11 happened, Palestinians, not only Hamas, Palestinians were celebrating in the streets. Israel was mourning. And Israel was preparing to help the United States with everything they had. I was part of operation at that time. And my handlers were very busy educating the FBI how to counter Islamic terrorism. So let's not forget who's our enemy and who's our friend.
Hamas is an ideology, right? Like the leadership can die, but as long as people still believe in what you call the mothership, the Muslim Brotherhood, right, propagates, then it doesn't matter how many times you bomb Gaza. It will just give birth again, unless it's like Nazi Germany, where it wasn't just bomb, but there was a re-education of the Germans.
Yes, but the bomb came first. So the Nazi Germany, for those who don't think that idea, this was actually my realization some 15 years ago, when I thought we could not defeat an idea by force. Mm-hmm. An ideology is a ghost. You cut one head, but then it's going to grow another head very quickly. Today, I came to realize actually that the use of force, when we run out of all other options, when dialogue, negotiations, peaceful means, mediation, every possibility hit a dead end, then we are left only by the use of force. And the use of force will lead to contain an ideology, to disprove it. The outcome of this war will prove Hamas wrong. Because Hamas have been building a momentum for 36 years. And what was the peak of their work? October 7? Is that it? You invest 36 years of your life, of billions of dollars, and the future of generations, the old generation and this generation. You gamble with the children's blood in the entire region, Jews and Muslims. You gamble with that to achieve political or religious agendas. So then we have two options when we are dealing with this enemy. The first option, to punish them and prove them wrong, tell them, no, this is not acceptable. And the fact that you are using human shields is not going to spare you, and you're not going to get away with it. The other option would be to bend to their demands instead of punishing them, to reward them by giving them a state, by giving them legitimacy, by telling them that committing a genocide and ethnic cleansing against the Jewish people based on their ethnicity, based on their religion, based on their race is acceptable. If we do the first option, it has its downsides, it has its own side effects, it has the damage affiliated with it. But the second option, given Hamas legitimacy, would be deadlier and a lot worse. And we will have to deal with Hamas in the future. And the cycle of violence next time would be deadlier and a lot more devastating.
It's interesting that you, in some ways, you're almost optimistic, because if you're basically saying, as long as the world does the right thing, as they did with Nazi Germany, World War II, where they did use excessive force and people did die, Germans died. I mean, you can bring Japan into the picture as well, right? Like the U.S. had to use excessive force, but there was re-education, and the Japanese think about America in a very different way now, and I'd say same thing with Nazi Germany, right? So you're almost optimistic that all of this could work out if we do the right thing.
Absolutely. First of all, because we have it by experience. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt was eradicated, and it was by the mean of force. Their leaders were executed. Sayyid Qutb was executed. That's the philosopher, the American hater. The Egyptian government executed him. The Egyptian government, Nasser, assassinated Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. Thousands of their members were imprisoned, and hundreds of their members were executed. In Syria, Assad, the father, demolished the Muslim Brotherhood. He bombed them in Hama and Hims, killed 50,000 of their members. So I don't want to say Israel has to go to that extent, but there was no way for Egypt or Syria to eradicate the Muslim Brotherhood without the use of force. This is why I think we are dealing with the same problem today, that there is no other possibility. Hamas rejected every peaceful mean for dialogue, for negotiations. What is left to talk about? And I know them personally. Those are sick people. They don't have political view, and they are very destructive. They're anti-civilization. They're anti-America. They're anti-freedom. They're not only anti-Israel. They're anti-individualism. Anybody who opposed them, they would kill him. The problem was in the previous wars that the world was ceasefire now. And all those pro-Palestine from Palestinian background posing as American, exploiting the American freedoms, taking advantage, cheating, smuggling money to Palestine and to Hamas throughout the decades, pressured the US government and other Muslims in Europe. They pressured European governments to cease fire. And what happened? How many wars do we have to do with Hamas before we come to realize that this is endless? So this war, we have to finish the job, and we have to finish it now, no matter what. This is now the global security we're talking about. We're talking about the future of the United States. So this is now the responsibility of intelligence service. It's the responsibility of the military. They know better. Those are the experts. And they are not cheating the Americans. We should trust in those institutions and let them help Israel get the job done.
Well, it's hard to trust the institutions because there are all kinds of reasons why we feel like these institutions have failed us or kept secrets from us.
So who do I trust? The losers on the street, just chanting angrily Free Palestine, and they don't know even what Palestine is? No, I prefer to put my trust with the limited system, but at least it's accountable to the Congress, it's accountable to the legislators, and we have the capacity as citizens to question it.
Well, when you say we can't have a ceasefire, we need to finish the job, I mean, think about the number of people in Gaza that have already died, right? Like, is it not enough? I mean, is the innocent civilians, a 10-year-old child, a 7-year-old child, they're getting bombed because people like you say, no ceasefire, we have to finish the job. I mean, these are people who have the same roots as yours. Think about it. You could have been one of these kids. You could have been that 9-year-old, that 4-year-old child that died from these bombs. Like, at what point do you expect people to see these images coming out of Gaza and not to say, stop with the Israeli bombs, we got to save these children's lives?
No, instead we need to say, we need to stop Hamas. We need to force Hamas to withdraw from the populated area and come out and fight an honorable fight. And if we cannot do this, then we need to work towards evacuating the civilians out of Gaza completely, the most vulnerable people, let's say women, children, elders, open a safe passage and let the United Nations do their job constructing camps, temporary camps in a safe zones so the people can escape the wrath of war. This was suggestion from day one. The first suggestion I had when I saw the war looming, because I knew there was no way around it. The first thing, I begged everybody, evacuate the civilians. And they failed to do this small task.
Who is
and if
the
you
they?
ask me why, when I say they, I mean Egypt, I mean the neighboring countries, I mean the Arab world, I mean the United Nations. Why do they have the budgets if they cannot host 2 million people or even less, so they can escape the wrath of savage group taking advantage of them as human shields? This is the most logical thing to do.
Well, one of the reasons why people are calling Gaza an open-air prison is because we in the West are under the impression that these civilians cannot leave because Israel wouldn't let them out, that Israel is trapping them in Gaza. They squish them into the space.
That's not true. Egypt is resisting this because there is a peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. Not peace between Israel and Egypt, but peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. And this is why Israel is honoring that. Egypt does not want to let the Palestinians come in, not because they are troublemakers only.
Why then?
Because they want the cause to continue. They are afraid that the Palestinian cause would die if the Gazans migrate out of Gaza and never come back. So then there is not going to be a Palestinian cause anymore.
So if there is actually an open-air prison, it's not Israel that's creating it. You're saying Egypt is creating it.
It's mostly Egypt. And Egypt is complicit in the crime. And I'm not talking about only Egypt. What about the Saudi Arabian influence? What about the Qatari money that was funding Hamas, empowering Hamas, and giving Hamas the freedom to move around while the people were imprisoned? Actually, Israel was the only country allowing Gazans to come into its borders and work and prosper. And Israel has been the greatest contributor to the Gazan economy. It took hundreds of thousands of Gazans as workers, giving them opportunity. And those are the ones who betrayed Israel on October 7 by giving Hamas information. Egypt did not take even one Palestinian worker, did not employ one Palestinian, while Israel was the one employing them. The Arab world don't want the Palestinian cause to fade away. They want the Palestinian cause to continue, even though they see that there is no way to fit 2 elephants into the eye of a needle. They see that it's a very small territory, and they understand Israel's security concern, especially with the rise of Islamists like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. It was possible to at least have a controlled zone, push the fence just few miles into the Sinai Peninsula, and allowed the most vulnerable Gazans to evacuate Hamas' wrath.
So you're saying the Islamists wanted humans to die in order for their cause to basically become popular and in vogue, and that's what you describe as the human shield.
Absolutely, this has been their strategy.
Well, some people are saying that Israel had its own nefarious agenda behind October 7th. Now, I know that you worked with the Israelis, and if there's anybody I could probably ask this question to is to you, given that you've really been on both sides, and now you really are an American here. Israel, I mean, I've been to Israel many times, obviously. It's a fortress, okay? Israel's military, even as you described it, is one of the best in the world. How could we be in a situation where you have one of the best militaries in the world, a fortress, knowing that there are neighboring countries that are trying to attack it? How could October 7th happen? How could there be such poor intelligence where several hours would take before Israel would be able to handle this attack coming in? There are people who are wondering, including Israelis maybe, who are saying, how could this happen?
Yeah. First of all, the southern border, you cannot put your entire reserve all the time in emergency situation. Move them from economy into defense at all time only because there is a potential threat. Nobody would do that. It's why Israel thought, a smart fence would do the job. There was a truce with Hamas, and this is Hamas betrayal that they stabbed Israel in the back because there was mediators like Qatar and the United States from the previous war that actually guaranteed that Hamas would obey instead of wasting their entire energy preparing for war. So what was there? Just a fence and very peaceful communities in the enclave, farmers, kibbutz, small communities. Most of those communities also were leftists, progressive, pro-dialogue and coexistence. Those are the ones who paid the biggest price of this war. Then there was the other thing that Israel depended so much on the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome, this is the missile defense system. This Iron Dome system, I think, gave Israel a false sense of security, that they depended so much on technology, not seeing that Hamas is going to actually invade 20 plus peaceful communities and wipe everything out. Then the day of October 7, my opinion, I'm not a military expert, but just from the basic I know, I don't think it's possible to activate an entire army reserve where people just were in technology fields and other industries, everybody busy doing their thing with their families, and just like activate that in a minute. So the people who had guns, they drove south and they did not wait for a permission. Friends called friends and everybody went down to help. And many of them were killed defending the civilians. They totally took advantage of Israel trust.
Do you think that Israel's blind spots, one is the trust, two is this technology that they thought they had, do you think these blind spots are blind spots that Americans might have as well? I mean, I can't help but think about our own borders here in America, or who on earth is coming in here, the stuff that our kids are learning in college, this idea that we can just trust that we're being taken care of. Is there something to learn from what we saw on October 7th in Israel here in America?
9/11 was a big surprise for the United States because the terrorists used non-conventional weaponry. They turned commercial airplanes into a deadly weapon, which hit the American economy in its core. So that was a very evil act. And there is no democracy, there is no modern army that is prepared for such a thing coming from within. Terrorists or foreign entities would manage to smuggle a mass destruction weapon, biological weapon, a nuclear weapon into the American soil. So this would be one. But I think today, watching social media and how easily people swayed by foreign entities, I worry about cyber terrorism. The governments, I'm sure they study every possibility of a potential threat, but also what is life if you just want to invest entire life just at defense. This is why we don't wait for them. It's why sometimes offense is part of defense. And the American offense through Israel to eradicate Hamas in Gaza is part of it. It's part of this strategy, that there is a common enemy. The sanctions on Russia is part of this. Sanctions on China is part of that. Because when you see that the enemy is inflating and getting more empowered, we have to make sure that we trim them. But there will always be surprises, and who knows what would be next. This is why the United States should always continue to be superior in Navy, in Air Force, in defense system. I'm very grateful for the American government support to help Israel during this crisis.
There is a criticism about you online that you're a traitor to your people, that you're a traitor to your father, and therefore you can't be trusted. I do feel like during this conversation, you really clarified that your loyalty is to goodness and truth. You've actually been quite loyal to your dad in many ways in that you protected him. You've been loyal to your people and where you came from, in that you're truly the one who is advocating for their best, for their future. I think that anybody that calls you a traitor really doesn't bother getting to know you or is unwilling to see that there is good versus evil, and you chose the side of good. The other criticism that there is of you on the internet is that you have gotten so emotional and so angry that you can't even think straight, right? It's like, oh, you've gone through all of this trauma as a child, and so therefore you just can't, keep your marbles together.
Right.
I don't mean
I need my medication.
Right, or something like that. I don't mean to be offensive. I feel like we've spent enough time where I can just be bold and blunt with you. But I'm curious, what is your reaction to that accusation? Because I've sat with you basically the entire day today. You don't seem crazy to me. You seem passionate and worried, and maybe we're just equally just as crazy, so we get each other. But, I wonder, what is your reaction to this idea that you're saying extremist things and, you're Islamophobic and, you're unreasonable? Like, I want to give you a chance to respond to these ad hominem attacks.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not out there asking people to trust me. I'm just an eyewitness. Like, for example, if I was a politician or if I was a priest, I would be looking for public contribution, whether if it's votes or money. But in my case, I have nothing to lose, and I'm not asking for anything in return. It was my moral responsibility to write the book, and my entire life was sacrificed. Everything I knew, all my friends, my entire society, my own family, was lost because of documenting my first-hand experience so I could share with the others. If this is treason, then be it. And now, those who don't want to listen, they are welcome to try. Go to Gaza. Go to prison with Hamas. In fact, go be a member with Hamas and see what will happen.
Are you getting paid for a pro-Jewish Zionist message? I know we didn't pay you. I bought you watermelon juice. That's about it. But people are claiming that you're becoming rich off this activity.
First of all, what were they expecting? This is my life achievement. I spent so many years in prison, in captivity, in underground working on behalf of humanity, saving human lives. I wrote a book about it. The book became successful. I did not even know that you would make money out of a book or publishing a book. Then the money came. Was I supposed to say, this is unfair? Then today when I do my speaking engagements, would any one of them speak on behalf of a crisis for free? Let them do it. But for me, I do my work, and yes, I get paid. This is this country. This is capitalism. Nobody works for free. If you have a value that you are contributing to life and people appreciate it and they want to pay you in return, why not? Is it a crime?
No, I agree. Is there anything else that you want to rebuttal that you feel like we need to address? I've tried to come with every accusation, money, traitor, crazy.
People will find a way to, in their denial, anything that contradicts with their truth, to discredit you. I speak on behalf of my experience, on behalf of myself. And many people also did not listen 10 years ago when I first came out. It was too crazy. It was too far. And they were just in their denial. Today, maybe they have a different opinion. And I'm here. I'm still here. It's going to be 10 years from now. And those who did not listen today, they're going to say, whoa, somebody was saying the truth at that time. We did not understand it. But this is the reality of the human society. Everybody has their own perceptual ability. And everyone, I am the mirror. They can see only themselves. They don't see me. Some people see a hero. Some people see a traitor. At the end of the day, I am what I am. And if I pose as a hero, then I'll accept to be the traitor for many. But since I am not posing as a hero, I just say I'm eyewitness. This is my experience. So I'm neither.